Both Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin called for NASCAR to issue harsher penalties when it comes to drivers intentionally wrecking other drivers on the track. Their comments were made in reaction to what happened in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series, specifically between Carson Hocever and Corey Heim. Obviously, Carson Hocever got into the back of Corey Heim with about 30 laps to go, and then Heim seemingly retaliated against him with about 4 laps to go. And basically trashed both of their trucks. So let's listen to what Denny Hamlin had to say here. Before we get to that, I would like to ask if you could please hit that subscribe button and help support this channel. But now let's listen to what Denny Hamlin had to say when he was asked by Bob Pockris about what he thought about what NASCAR should do in reaction to the mayhem between Carson Hocevar and Corey Heim.
I mean, if they just send people to the back for aggressive driving, is that as simple
That's
as
what they do in the local short tracks. Yeah, I don't understand. It shouldn't be that hard. And I guess the fine line is, for instance, someone said, well, what about Carson? Would that be a fraction? I'd say no. That would be a racing incident. Some of these are blatant enough that you can see.
I think that's really interesting. Then I'm going to pause it real quick right there. But I think that is interesting to what he says there. He doesn't think the initial contact between Carson Hocevar and Corey Heim would be a punishable offense, given that he calls that a racing incident. And I actually think he's right there. I kind of agree with him. I don't think Hocevar intentionally tried to wreck Corey Heim, and then obviously it collected Friesen. And I don't think they tried to do that. I think that he did indeed misjudge it, and it was a racing incident, and that's what we call an accident, and those things do indeed happen. But I do think what Corey Heim did, I think that was intentional, and that is something where your car should be sent to the rear, or potentially at that late in the race, maybe just park them. But let's listen to the rest of what Denny Hamlin has to say here.
That someone hit someone and they kept pushing. Those are the types of incidents you penalize. But we're never going to get there. I don't think NASCAR is ever going to make that change. And my opinion of it is that it's not even a short-term gain anymore. Sure, it gets some people on social media talking, but we're not having more viewers because of this chaos that we've created.
I think he's right there. I don't think that the ratings have gone up because of all the chaos and everything at the tracks and everything like that. As far as NASCAR and maybe not doing that, I almost tend to disagree there. I think Denny Hamlin is the perfect example of that. Right? He did indeed I think he was suspended actually for retaliating. I don't know if he was suspended. He was definitely punished after the race when he was suspended against for retaliating against Ross Chastain and then admitting it on the Actions Detrimental podcast. So NASCAR is willing to step in, but it has to be pretty blatant. So they might be convinced that you can indeed start making penalties during the race and do that. And I think that is something that they might be able to do. So I kind of disagree with him there. But he might know. He obviously probably knows a little bit more. He's in conversations with them. But we have seen them suspend Chase Elliott this year. We saw them suspend Bubba Wallace last year. So they are willing to suspend drivers and punish them and dock points and everything like that. And they've really been harsh on if there's any kind of parts violations and things like that. We've seen very severe penalties, especially the past 2 years. But let's get into what Kyle Busch had to say. He spoke to Noah Lewis about what happened in the truck race on Friday night, and this is what he had to say here.
I apologize if you were already asked this, but last night some drivers are weighing in on that Truck Series race, and as a team owner in that race, KBM's last race, what can you make of kind of the moves that we saw that was pretty wild in that truck race?
Yeah, I mean, there's aggressive racing. You're 3 wide, 4 wide, 5 wide sometimes, and it's hard for the spotters to see going into turn one where everybody is. But as a driver, you have to know your surroundings and understand what you're doing and where you're at. So just a lot of mistakes, a lot of dumb stuff. Tore up one of ours. So, just I don't know. It's the nature of what everything is nowadays. We're teaching kids at 8 years old to go out there and run wide open and go as fast as you can and slam into the guy next to you to try to get by him. So they're all taught that way now where, there's no repercussions as much. And, the sanctioning body, I think, needs to step in more and penalize.
How emotional was last?
So that is what Kyle Busch had to say. Those words aren't really out of ordinary for him. He actually talked about this back in March when Denny Hamlin was suspended. When he was asked what he'd like to see done, he said drivers to be more ethical and take responsibility for their actions and just race and race hard. And if you make a mistake, like, okay, I get it. But when you intentionally drive over somebody because they made a move on you or something that you didn't like, then you're going to get punched in the face afterwards. So he's obviously telling people to basically use fisticuffs to ensure that people would not use their vehicle to take you out, not use their car or truck or whatever it happens to be to take you out. But then he also goes on and talks about how there's been a loss of respect in the garage area. He says we have completely lost any sense of respect in the garage area between drivers. That's where the problem lies. Nobody gives two craps about anybody else, and it's just a problem where everybody takes advantage of everybody as much as they can. We're all selfish, granted, but there was an etiquette that once did live here. Mark Martin started it. Tony Stewart really lived it. I think Jeff Gordon lived by it. Bobby Labonte, Rusty Wallace for the most. Dale Jarrett for sure. It did exist, and he said that's gone. He was then asked about what he tells his son on how he should race and showed a major difference in how local tracks handle incidents compared to the NASCAR Cup Series. He said he already knows that he can't run somebody over because he gets sent to the back. I think that's something else because there's no repercussions for running somebody over. So if we want to do that, then you get sent to the back. You get held a lap, something. But if you spin somebody out, and I'm guilty of it, I've spun somebody out for the lead before or the win before, something like that on accident racing. But if it happens, then you get sent to the back. Caution comes out, you go to the back. There's no repercussions for that right now. So that's the old short track adage and how these kids learn when they're growing up. Maybe we need to implement that here. So that is what Kyle Busch had to say back in March, and I think he kind of echoed that again this past weekend. And I definitely do think NASCAR probably needs to step in and start punishing some of this stuff, curtailing it, and maybe they think that it is driving views and engagement and things like that, but Denny Hamlin sure doesn't think that it is, and based on what we saw with the numbers earlier this year, it doesn't seem to really impact viewership. It's just maybe you have more engagement from the people that are already watching things like that, and maybe it's like really short-term kind of things. But you really want to like build a product out long-term and have great racing rather than kind of all the chaos and mayhem that we saw in the Truck Series on Friday night. So let me know what you think about what Denny Hamlin and Kyle Busch had to say and whether or not you agree with them.